Tighten your lines as we get ready to sail the seven seas on the Political Pirate Podcast. Join Captain Ted Yoho and the salty dog John Martin as they search far and wide for the greatest treasure of all, the truth. From local Florida news to nationwide stories and the globe beyond, we've got it all mapped out. Now here's your hosts, the salty dog John Martin and Captain Ted Yoho.
Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the 3 Ps, the Political Pirate Podcast, with yours truly, the old salty dog, wearing his dinosaur shirt here today. I'm down in Treasure Island, Florida. I'm going to be going on a boat as soon as the show is over. So I'm also going to welcome in, of course, the captain of our ship, none other than Mr. Ted Yoho. He's going to be doing a little bit of traveling today, so he's going to be just his lovely picture up there today. Good morning, Ted. How the heck are you?
Good morning, John. Tight lines and good fishing for you today. I'm doing great. I appreciate you having everything ready, and I'm traveling and look forward to this show.
Absolutely. Well, Ted, we have a memorandum of understanding. Now, I'm not sure exactly what that means. I know what a memorandum is, and I know
you don't understand it.
But after I've read this, I don't really understand it. So we're going to kind of break down some excerpts from it. And it may take 2 parts of the show to do it, but I think it's really important. And I really need some help, Captain, because, I'm very much for the president. I very much believe in President Trump. I'm a strong supporter. I'm not saying he's always right, but there are questions. I kind of dismiss the questions from the left because they're just the usual dribble. But there's questions in the Republican MAGA base as well that I think are legitimate concerns, and I share them. So I want to talk about that. What are your thoughts just in general? And we'll get specific because the president actually signed the agreement, I think, yesterday, or actually maybe Wednesday, and now they were supposed to meet in Geneva, and the vice president was going over there, possibly the president, but late yesterday, they basically said that there's no need for the vice president to go there, and it's all pretty much a done deal. So it is what it is.
Well,
we got to try to figure.
You know what, John? It probably will take us several shows to dissect through this. It kind of reminds me when John Kerry said when we were in foreign affairs, a bad deal, no deal is better than a bad deal. And then he went on and had a bad deal, and that's where the JCPOA, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, that went in there and really did nothing. I mean, it slowed down their nuclear development, but they were still doing that behind the scenes. They created ICBMs, and it was still death to America. They're the largest sponsor of terrorism with other proxies around the world that did us harm and other people harm. And so this deal, and I guess the point of that is you can't take them for what they say. Saying that, I still support President Trump, although I didn't support him going in there in the first place. We've been to the Middle East too many times with no favorable resolution. A lot of money, a lot of people got killed. And I think it caused more division and hatred towards America. So we're going to have to see how this plays out. From what I'm hearing and what I've read and the research I've done, is the Iranian IRGC, who really is who's going to control that. They're not in agreement with this, and we're just going to have to take this day by day. I hope and pray that the president can bring this to a resolution, because it'll be a life-changing for the Middle Eastern countries, and for the future of our country.
Well, I tell you, it kind of reminds me, God, I hope I'm wrong, because this is it's a good analogy, but a horrible one at the same time. It's almost like Obamacare when they asked Pelosi what was in the bill, and she said, we're gonna have to pass it, and then we'll find out. Or see what
that's a great analogy. That's a great analogy because when you read through what they've said, and they said, well, this is what we've agreed to, but we're waiting to see if they're agreeing to it. And then there's the whole thing, well, they've signed a deal and it's a done deal. time will tell, John, and it's going to be messy. It's messy. Of course, anytime you're dealing with the Islamic Republic of Iran, it's going to be messy. I hope the other nation states around that area, the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Oman, Qatar, Kuwait, all those nations can come together and say, let's move this way. Let's get out of this. If not, we're back into the crusades of the centuries that went on from like the 900s to 1600s. Let's hope we don't do that. Let's hope that rationale comes out of this and that things go on. It is interesting to mutually agree upon.
You bring up
Go ahead.
No, you bring up an interesting point, because at the end of the day, if the Middle East is going to be stable, prosperous, and peaceful, it's not just the United States, it's not just Israel, but the Arab world has to step up to the plate. They have to isolate Iran. They have to basically say, you're either going to play well in the sandbox or you're not going to be in it at all. I mean, if they don't do that at some level, no matter what we do or what Israel does, other than all-out war, is going to curtail Iran. It's just not. That's without them, and that is a positive thing, because it seems like President Trump has been able to accomplish that. But we'll have to wait and see how it totally plays out.
It will, and the thing Trump has done. I mean, he's brought Bibi Netanyahu in check. I mean, I don't see any other leader that's ever done that. He's done it in a way that I've never seen done before. It says, you need to stop, because we're the only country that likes you in the world. So you might want to start playing nice with us too. And I think that was a good thing. The whole thing is, we're a Christian nation. Iran is an Islamic nation. Those two don't mix well together. But it is going to take that coalition of those Arab states. And when I was it was during the Afghan, or trying to get out of Afghan during Trump won, and they were negotiating. We had Karzai, I think, was our negotiator, and I was talking to the Indonesian ambassador, and he says, you guys really need to bring in somebody like us. And I agreed, because we're a Christian nation trying to make an agreement with an Islamic nation, and it's just like two enemies together. Whereas if we would have brought in Indonesia, which is it's a nation of 290 million people, the largest Muslim nation on the planet, had they come in there and been an intermediary, I think that would have been a better deal, because you've got like-minded, two countries of Islamic ideals negotiating to get a settlement, instead of us dictating to a natural enemy without complete surrender. So it is, I hope, this coalition that he can build. And this is where it goes in. I know this is one of your talking points, of the 300 billion committed. He said, and JD Vance said, that's not going to be American money. And we'll wait to see how that happens. Okay.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we're going to go through these points, and they're pretty detailed, but we're just going to kind of do excerpts from it. So number one on the list says the United States of America and the Islamic Republic of Iran and their allies, which we know the proxies, in the current world war are signing this MOU to declare the immediate and permanent termination of military operations on all fronts, including Lebanon, which basically controls what Israel should do in there. That sounds good, but the devil is in the details.
It sure is. It sure is. And that's, this is going to take years to work out and sort through, and it's going to be a step-by-step thing. What was that movie? Something about Bob or something, where it was Bill Murray.
Bob?
What about Bob?
Baby
and he had
steps.
to take baby steps. Yeah. And it's going to be baby steps. And unfortunately, you're dealing on the world stage, billions of dollars at risk, human life at risk, peace and stability in the world is at risk. So let's root for the American president, Donald Trump, and his team of negotiators. And, can you imagine how it would be if this were to come through fruition, to where this conflict in the Middle East that we've dealt with, you and I have dealt with all of our lives, came to a resolution, a peaceful one, and they built from there. The future that our kids would have and the kids of those countries would have, it would be so much better.
Well, there's a lot of history that shows that area of the world, including the history of plants. I studied that at the University in Florida. That really the cradle of civilization is basically in that whole region there, and obviously multiple faiths consider it a spiritual place. So if it truly was the cradle of civilization, it could be the end of it, but certainly it could be a dawning of a brand new day, so to speak.
It sure could be. Do you suppose that's why Pope Leo, when Trump said he was going to annihilate everybody, and Pope Leo spoke out and said, we need to change this here?
Yeah. Well, it references in this deal, and certainly in the first number one and throughout, the term final deal. People need to understand that this is only, according to them, a 60-day understanding. So a 60-day deal that is supposed to lead up to a final deal in 60 days. So we'll have to wait and see on that. But number two,
this is a 60-day final deal.
Yeah. We'll see.
Yeah.
But it says here in number two, the United States of America and the Islamic Republic of Iran undertake to respect each other's sovereignty and territorial integrity and to refrain from interfering in each other's internal affairs. What exactly is that? It's a lot of political speak. It sounds like something that Kamala Harris would say.
Well put. I mean, when you read that, I read that and I'm like, I pretty much had the same feeling that you did. I'm like, what does that really mean? And then it's only good for 60 days at best. What I think is the president is just doing whatever he can to calm things down, get gas prices down to the midterms. And that's not far off. I think it's a little more than 60 days, although we have ours here in August, and a lot of them are already starting to play out. And so for the primaries, it's just going to be a wait and see, John. Take it day by day.
Absolutely. Well, number three says the United States of America and the Islamic Republic of Iran commit to negotiating and achieving, this is their words in it, achieving the final deal in a maximum of 60 days, extendable with mutual consent. I mean, it's hard to fathom that there's going to be a dramatic change on Iran's part in 60 days, and that if there is, that it has a lasting meaning. But who knows?
Well, this is where
I lost you there, Ted. He dropped off for a minute. We'll keep going. Number four on this list, immediately upon the signing. You back, Ted? We're going to keep moving.
Oh, I didn't know you lost me.
Yeah, we lost you there. So
I'm here.
Now, immediately upon the signing of this Memorandum of Understanding, the United States of America will begin the removal of its naval blockade and any disturbances or impediments against the Islamic Republic of Iran, and will fully end the naval blockade within 30 days. Now, that sounds like capitulation. I could see where you could make a case that we basically are capitulating when we don't need to at this point to Iran, that we haven't met their needs. We should just bring them to their knees. But, maybe I'm wrong, but it does have an echo of that to me.
No, Carolyn and I talked about that last night, and it is. It's like, to me, it sounds like we're yielding, and I don't think we need to. And if you go back, and what I tried to say there when I got dropped is, go back to when Trump said we've got a final deal. It will be signed on Friday, and then the that's today. And now it's going to be 60 days. It's going to change, and it can change. And then you go back, a couple of weeks ago, they need to come to the table now, or we're going to bomb. And then we saw him back up from that. So he's not shown the strong hand that we would have thought he would have shown. Once you got into this quagmire, I've talked about it before, and you and I have talked about it. You can't back up. You've got to go to complete surrender. And, that's why I was against this whole deal in the beginning. But we're here, so we'll see where this goes. But I agree with you. I think it's capitulation.
Well, Ted, you mentioned complete surrender, and that reminds me of World War II, because clearly under Hitler, the Germans, whether they wanted to or not, were literally fighting down to the last child, not the last man, but the last child there. So they literally were annihilated, not with a nuclear bomb, but basically just annihilated. And Japan, it's widely stated, and most people agree, whether we should have used a nuclear bomb is a whole other debate. But if we hadn't used a nuclear bomb, we would have beaten Japan, but it would have cost at least 2 million more American lives, not to mention Japanese lives, to do that conventionally, because they were not going to surrender. They were going to go literally house to house in Japan.
Yeah. Well, and you look at what has happened with ISIS and the Islamists. They don't back off. I mean, they might get disorganized and kind of beat for the moment, but the ideology stays there, John, and they don't back off. It doesn't go away. The ideology stays there, and it'll grow again. And with Iran getting more money out of this deal, revenues coming in from shipping, sanctions being released, the ideology is still there. So it's going to be dicey. I sure hope and pray that the president and other nations can bring this to an end peacefully, and then we move on from there.
Well, just like the mayor of New York, these guys talking about the Iranians believe in globalizing the intifada. And what people need to understand is when you believe in killing all non-believers, which is essentially what intifada means, there is no compromise. How do you compromise if you sincerely believe that you either convert to their version of Islam or you're put to the sword? Where is the compromise in that? Because in order to compromise, you couldn't truly believe that, and then other people aren't going to follow you. So the very essence or core belief is contrary to compromise.
Well, no, you're absolutely right. There is no compromise when you have that kind of an ideology that it's we win, you lose, or we win and they lose. I mean,
it's kind of
in history.
Well, Ted, in a way, the way that version of Islam works is kind of like people wonder how, like, Cortez, defeated the Aztecs. Well, as the story goes, he had about 600 people, and they went there, and when they camped on the beach, and he had all the boats burned.
Burned the boats. Yeah, it takes options away. You've got survival is your only choice.
Yeah, and that's kind of to simplify it, that is the essence of that fundamental Islamic intifada belief, is that you either live or you die. So there is no compromise.
There is no compromise, and I think it's with what you said, and I agree with the capitulation. It looks like I think it's a holding them. I hope it's come, help right the ship on this and help the negotiations.
Well, number 6 on the list, and then we're going to take a quick break and come back. It says the United States of America undertakes the regional partners to develop a definitive, and this is what you talked about at the beginning, mutually agreed plan for at least U.S. dollars. Now, that doesn't mean it's coming from the taxpayers. $300 billion for the reconstruction of economic development of the Islamic Republic of Iran. See, the way I look at that, Ted, they're debating on where the money's coming from. Does that really matter? Because I mean, I don't want U.S. taxpayers on the hook. That's not what I'm saying. But it's not where the money's coming from. It's what will they do with that money? That is the real question.
Well, that is, I mean, historically, they want that money. And Biden gave them that money and go and help the Iranian people in the hands of their proxies and to cause more conflict around the world. But it does matter where the money comes from the standpoint of the American people going into the midterms. If there's the narrative that the Americans are paying this money, Trump will be thrown out of office and he'll lose the majority big and he'll be impeached. But I don't want to see it go to proxy nations either. You know, we're saying it's not coming from us, but we give it indirectly to Saudi Arabia, Yemen, or not Yemen, but one of the other Gulf states, and then they put it in there. You know, that's still coming from the American taxpayers, and that's just would be a fatal step for Trump to go that way. And Rubio knows that, and I would hope he would steer away from that. And I'm kind of disappointed in Marco that he couldn't steer the president away from even going into Iran. And it kind of makes me wonder about his foreign policy. You know, I've always liked Marco. I like what he's doing. But, you know, for this to happen under his watch, and I know he's got a strong president, but it kind of makes you, if he were to be president, how's he going to govern? How's he going to lead?
Yeah. We may find out one day. Well, we're going to take a quick commercial break. But before we do, I just want to remind everyone to make that call Freddie, get on board Ted Yoho, Captain Ted Yoho, Team 3Ps, the Political Pirate Podcast.
That's right.
Man. We'll be right back.
Hi there, this is Coach Steve Spurrier, and I want to let you know that by popular demand, Spurrier's Gridiron Grill's delicious brunch is now served in a premium buffet. You have spoken, we have listened, and we're now serving Gainesville's only elevated buffet, complete with an omelet station, ginger sage chicken sausage, shredded short rib, plus you can enjoy bottomless mimosas and Bloody Marys. So join us every Saturday and Sunday from 11 to 3 for the best brunch in town.
And we're back to the 3Ps, the Political Pirate Podcast, with your host here, the old salty dog, John Martin, and coming in us via audio only today, Mr. Ted Yoho. Well, Ted, we just heard from the old ball coach about Spurrier's Gridiron Grill. I got to say this. I saw a commercial yesterday on Facebook that he was doing for his restaurant, and it was encouraging people to come in this afternoon early because they're going to have a pre-watch and then a watch party with another type of football, because today at 3 o'clock, I think USA takes on Australia in the World Cup, and the old ball, he was promoting none other than coming there to watch football.
Football, that's right, a different kind. But that's great. You know, that game is growing worldwide, and it's becoming way more popular in this country, and it's going to outpace football, they say, you know, the American football. So go down to Spurrier's Grill, have a great hors d'oeuvres, snacks, drinks, refreshments, and watch the game in a friendly environment that no doubt will be very energetic.
Well, you know, I'm rooting for Team USA, and right now we're talking in a way about Team USA because what we're doing, if you're just tuning in, we're breaking down the Memorandum of Understanding that I guess takes effect essentially today with the United States and Iran, and we're going through the 14 points. We're really right kind of in the middle of it. And it says in this, we're just kind of doing excerpts. It says, the United States of America undertakes, this is number 7, to terminate all types of sanctions against the Islamic Republic of Iran. My question on that, Ted, is has Iran really earned that right to have those sanctions dropped? Now, the president and Marco Rubio, you mentioned him earlier, they've come out and said that none of this is going to happen until Iran takes certain actions. but those actions are a bit vague. And Iran seems to say that they're happening immediately.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, it's when you read that, the Islamic Republic of Iran reaffirms that it shall procure no development of nuclear weapons. But when you read other reports, they're like, we're not agreeing to that. We're just saying we're going to decrease the escalation of violence and we're going to open up the Straits of Hormuz with no attacks on the ship. Um, and again, John, we've been down this road before, and I just don't trust the deal. And the Memorandum of Understanding, an MOU, is a piece of paper that has no binding, no teeth in it, no enforcement mechanism. It's just like it's a starting point, and they're not worth the ink that's written on them or the paper.
Yeah, well, I know we have quite a few Native Americans that believe it or not, and I was surprised when I saw that back when I was doing another show that actually watch our show. But when you think about it, they're very conservative and they don't trust much either. You know,
Right.
so I say a shout out to one of our loyal fans, Bear Hand. I know you watch us all the time. You know I love you, but the Native Americans know what memorandums of understanding are worth because they've had one or two that didn't work out too well for them with us, the United States. So we're not without fault from time to time. But you mentioned number 8 there. The Islamic Republic of Iran reaffirms that it shall not procure or develop nuclear weapons. Now, to me, this is a number one right here. I don't trust them either, but at least they've made the statements that they're not going to do it. It's up to us to make sure they don't, because as you know, Ted, I believe fundamentally that if the current regime had, and that belief system had a nuclear weapon, they would use it. And that is a game changer, period, for any belief system to me.
Well, until they change their leadership, if they stay with the ideology Islamist, if they get a nuclear weapon, they will use it. I'm convinced of that. And so I don't know how you move on without complete surrender. And, you know, Trump put himself in a corner, and America in a corner. I just hope through their strong negotiations that they can entice them to back off. But for how long? Is it going to be for a moment for the Trump administration? Is it going to be for a generation, or is it going to be a permanent way moving forward like the other Arab nations?
Well, Ted, this number 9, and I kind of mentioned this earlier, but I'm going to say it again. And if the president's listening, I apologize, sir, because I know this will irk you a bit, and that's not really my intention. But this number 9, I swear, Ted, it's like they drafted Kamala Harris to write this. It says, pending the final deal, the United States of America and the Islamic Republic of Iran agree to maintain the status quo. The Islamic Republic of Iran will maintain the current status quo of its nuclear program, and the United States of America will not impose any new sanctions and will not deploy additional forces in the region. That's a bunch of saying that nothing's going to change, to me.
Pretty much. That's the way I read that too. Yeah, it is a Kamala Harris statement. It's a lot of wordage, verbiage, without a whole lot of finality. It just says, yeah. And again,
Yeah,
I just
go
I
ahead.
just don't think it's going to work through. You know, and I hate to be pessimistic, but I know the country we're dealing with, and I hope the president is listening. You know, this is something we cannot afford to get wrong, Mr. President. Not just for you making a deal or for the midterms. This is for, you know, the future direction of this country and the impact it's going to have for generations to come. We cannot afford to get this wrong.
Yeah, well, the only real faith, I'll say this before we even sum up, the only real faith that I have in this memorandum of understanding and what it may mean or not mean and what the ultimate agreement will be, my only faith in it is Donald Trump, to be honest with you, Ted. It is Donald Trump. That's the only, because the rest of this is pretty gobbledygook, I have to say.
No, it really is. But, you've got more faith in him on getting this done. And, I've always felt he was weak on foreign policy. We can go back to the Ukraine and Russia and Ukraine. He's going to end the deal in a day when he gets elected. And, we know how that's continuing on. And, there's supposed to be a ceasefire, but Russia just bombed Kiev and Kiev just bombed Moscow. So there is no ceasefire. The same with Hezbollah and Lebanon. Those things are going on. So we don't want to get out in front of our skis and saying, oh, we made a deal. It's done. No, it's not. And you lose credibility as you do that. And as you lose that credibility, these nations watch us. Right now, Iran is watching and just say, he'll back up. And, they're going to start letting things go through. And we're going to go back to the good old status quo. I mean, that was a terrible status quo.
Well, I mentioned the word capitulation earlier, and I chose that word carefully because I mean exactly what
You're
I think.
You're a careful guy.
Number 10, I want to read this, and as I'm reading this, I ask the audience, does this sound like capitulation to you? Number 10 says U.S. Department of Treasury will issue waivers for the export of Iranian crude oil, petroleum products, and byproducts, and all associated services, including banking, transactions, insurance, transportation, and it even has the word etc. in here. That sounds like capitulation, but maybe I'm not understanding it.
Well, I tell you what, you'll know if the Iranian people that are loyal to the Islamic Republic and the theocracy, if they're carrying a sign with Donald Trump's picture on there and cheering it, it's a bad deal.
Well, here's the part, another one. I mean, I don't know if it gets better as we go through it or not. We're almost done. But this one here, Iran has done a lot of dirty stuff over the last 50 years directly to the United States and certainly to other entities in the world. And I wonder, are they going to be punished for any of that? Because that's what the sanctions were intended to do to a certain extent. It says, number 11, the United States of America undertakes to make fully available for use the frozen or restricted funds and assets of the Islamic Republic of Iran upon the implementation of this MOU. So that means today, if you interpret that right, it doesn't sound like they're paying a price for anything that they have done.
No, I agree with you. And think of this, John. If we don't bring this to a complete resolution to where they surrender, what's going to happen when you get a Democrat president in there? They're going to come back emboldened, more powerful, more likely to have a nuclear weapon, more likely to be like Kim Jong-un. You don't know if he's going to use it or not, but it scares you to know he's got one. What's the Islamic Republic going to do? If Trump does not get this resolved in his administration and you get a Democrat in there, it's going to be a disaster as far as negotiating with Iran, because they've shown that they can beat the great Satan in negotiation. And that, they took some pain and people died and they killed the Ayatollah, but they're still there. They've got money, they've got the scientists, and they're going to rebuild, and they'll get like Kim Jong-un. They'll be that much more defiant. And that's what I worry about when you go in there and you don't do this completely. And unfortunately, the rest of the world's not really with President Trump or the United States on this.
12 and 13 of this 14-point agreement. 12 and 13 of this agreement basically just talk about the willingness to seal the deal, to complete this thing in 60 days. But the number 14 and the last one probably troubles me the most, Ted. It says, if I'm understanding this, it says the final deal will be endorsed and binding by the UNSC, which I interpret that as the UN Security Council.
Right, the United Nations
I have
Security
less
Council.
than zero respect for the UN Security Council.
As you should. You shouldn't have any respect for them. I mean, it's a joke. When you look at who's on that, it's Russia, China. At one point, Iran was on that, and it has no binding. resolution, and that's what the JCPOA was. It was a approved by the UNSC, not the United States Senate. It was approved by outside organizations. Again, if the president is listening, you cannot back up on this. You have got to get a complete and final surrender of Iran, or just cut them off from the rest of the world, or cut them out of our system. This is where the sanctions. We were throwing sanctions left and right. If somebody did something that upset Obama or Biden or Trump, oh, we're going to sanction this and we're going to sanction that. We're throwing sanctions around to where they became ineffective. And the rest of the world knew that because they were working around us. Other countries, our allied countries, were helping countries work around it. Japan, South Korea, they were working around our sanctions because it was hurting them, especially on the oil.
Just recently, before this war or action or whatever started, we found out it was released that Spain, who is supposed to be one of our strongest allies, a NATO ally, obviously they're not.
No, they're definitely not.
Was smuggling weapons-grade steel that you specifically need to build drones and missiles with.
Yeah.
Spain was doing that.
That's what's happened when you don't have strong diplomacy, where you're a friend and an ally. I don't need people to like me. I want them to respect our nation, and they need to know that what you say is what you mean, and that you're not going to interfere in their politics, and you don't want them to interfere in yours, but you don't want them to upset the apple cart either. And unfortunately, I see the administration has upset the apple cart, and we can, just look at the things that have happened. The way he's done NATO. I think it was great what he did to NATO, but then to isolate us more out of the European theater, we didn't agree with him on everything. And I think that needed to be shaken up. But then what happened in Venezuela, what's going to happen in Cuba, and then, just the whole disjointedness of our foreign policy, it's really upset. It's upset the status quo in the world. When I see South Korea talking about getting closer to China and the European Union getting closer to China, that doesn't bode well for America in the future.
Well, I tell you, you segued right into my next segue here.
That's my job, buddy.
America's future. America's future. I tell you, Iran, I worry about them using a nuclear bomb, but the biggest threat to America right now seems to come from within. Democratic Socialist Jancy, I hope I'm saying that, Janice Lewis George wins the D.C. mayoral primary, which means she's going to be the next mayor. And she is an absolute socialist. I'm not even going to play some of the things she's been saying. She got 53% of the vote in D.C. She's for D.C. statehood. She's for defunding the police. And basically, she is opposing any actions that have made Washington safer under the tutelage of Mr. Donald Trump. I mean, to me, it's going to be a fiasco for D.C., but basically all of our major cities now are being taken over by socialists, Democrat socialists, communists. I mean, even out in L.A., you've got a lady that has got a real good chance now of beating Karen Bass, and she is about the only way you could be further left than her is to be a NASCAR driver, because they always turn left. But this is becoming a real threat, I think.
And this is really what we need to focus on, and that's what we need to do, is to educate people. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
All right. And I'm glad you brought this up. I saw this, and you're absolutely right. Janice Lewis George. She's a member of the DSA, the Democrat Socialists of America. They can call it socialist, but it's communist. You've got her, and as you brought up, the one that is going to challenge Karen Bass, who came from behind, and the other guy, Spencer Pratt, was winning. He was number 2. But the California irregularities in their voting and the drawn out process, Nita Rahman is a DSA, and like you said, she's more radical. Then you look at New York. Look at and the point I'm trying to make is look at the escalation of these type of people coming into office. Of course, you've got AOC out of the Bronx, DCA. They did the same thing with her. She was probably the first one. The DCA and their team of people recruited candidates until they found the one that they could manipulate to be the loud voice that would carry a good message, like they did with Graham Plattner out of Maine. You've got AOC, you got Madami, the mayor or the councilwoman of Albany, New York, who is a communist, and she makes no bones about it. The list just goes on. You got, Pamela Jayapal out of Washington. She's not a DSA person, but her policies are DSA. Then you got Ilhan Omar, who's not a DSA candidate. Her policies are Islamist, from the river to the sea. Rashid Tlaib is one of them. Bernie Sanders, Al Said in Michigan. And so the list is growing. Katie Wilson, Seattle mayor, DSA values or communist values. Then you've got Tina Kotex out of Oregon, the governor. I wonder if Tina Kotex, if she's related to Tampon Tim, but she's got DSA values. And this list just goes on. And I can read several more of these. And then I can't leave without saying Hannah Shevitz out of Ithaca, New York, who Madami has put in charge of their housing. And she is a communist. And she says that people should not own private property. And if you listen to communists, they advocate for the collective or public ownership of major industries and eliminating class hierarchies and the distribution of goods based on one's needs. I mean, it's communism.
Ted, go back and look at the video from yesterday in New York. They had kind of a communist rally, the Democrat Socialist, and the lead speaker was none other than Mr. Bernie Sanders. And of course, Mandami was there, but they had about 5 or 6 people that are running and have won primaries in New York to run, some of them taking out incumbent Democrats. It is a rogues gallery of scare, and they're young, so they could have a long political future potentially.
Yeah, they're going to have a long.
I'm sorry.
No, they are going to have a long one. I mean, I started looking through the other ones that are getting elected to city councils all over the nation, mainly in the Northeast, and they're young. And they're just entering politics. You think they're going to go away after an election? Or are they going to grow stronger and grow their numbers for that kind of ideology? And I think the writing's on the wall there. So that's really what is happening right under us. This is really, John, the frog being boiled slowly in the pot, and it's happening here in America. And people need to wake up, because you're going to wake up one morning and the United States of America flag, the Constitution, they'll be gone, and it'll be socialist. But it won't be a happy socialist. It'll be a revolutionary type of socialist. And I say that because with what Donald Trump said about D.C., Janice Lewis George, if he acts on that and says we're going to federalize D.C., do you think that'll go quietly, or will there be a lot of rioting in the streets? Possibly the beginning of a civil war, localized. That's what I see coming, John. And I hope the heck I'm wrong.
Yeah, I'm glad you went ahead and mentioned that about the president, because he said if she wins, and she has now won, that he may have to take D.C. back over, and that could open up a can of worms for sure. So we were going to play that video. I just want to give a heads up to our producer that we're not going to play that, and he can stage the next one because we'll get to that. But Ted, I want to talk to the Democrats out there in our audience, because we have some. We both have friends that are Democrats. I used to be one. I'm not talking about the elected officials. They can listen as well. But Democrats, go back and look at the video I'm talking to you about Bernie Sanders. He says something very important message to Democratic voters. You may like it, you may not, but do not ignore it. Because Ted, what he said was, and I'm paraphrasing it, he said that the current leadership of the Democratic National Party, and he's not talking about just the chairperson, he's talking about people that are running the show like the Schumers and whatnot. He said they no longer adequate or something to that effect to get the job done for the American people, and simply and implied that the 5 or 6, including Madami, were the ones that are. So just take that as my word, if you would, but tell me where I'm wrong. They are telling you that they are going to take over the entire Democratic Party and then the nation. That is their goal.
Well, they are. They really are. And I mean, that's exactly what they're doing. Like I said, all these young people getting in, Daniel Carson, Bangor, Maine, city council elected in 2025, just started serving. Luisa de Paula Santos, Cambridge, Mass, just got elected. She's on the school board. Do you think she's going to espouse American principles and traditional history? Or is she going to tell us, start teaching how bad America is, racist, and carrying on the garbage that they've been talking about? Bernie Sanders is absolutely right. And that's the scary thing. When somebody tells you exactly what they're going to do, somebody like him that has a populist movement since probably for the last 20 years, and he might have been the president had the Democratic Party not taken him out. They are rebuilding the Democrat Party. People were wondering what was going to happen. You know, they had their little bro fest out there in California for messaging, and they came out and says, "Well, we've got to do this and that," and it was kind of a joke, and they spent a lot of money on it. Bernie Sanders is a leader, and he's leading people the wrong way for the betterment of this country, and really for the future of the people that think Bernie and AOC and that group is doing what's best for this country, for your future. You need to wake up, look around at another country that has that kind of communist socialist ideology, and ask yourself, do you want to live there?
Well, I got a story here, Ted, that a friend of the show's you sent it to me, but he sent it to you. Actually, one of our sponsors from Archer Automotive, and I definitely want to play it because it fits in as, socialism. There's the obvious things and there's the not so obvious things. Socialism is marrying into big business, capitalism, the top
sure
of the top. And this is an excellent example that is not getting near the coverage it deserves. I want to play this video for you. We'll play about a minute or two of it, and then we'll come back and talk about it. Because as a good old boy raised up in a country town, growing up around guys whose passion was to fix cars, and who has got my fishing truck out there as a 1990 Chevrolet, this rubbed me the wrong way, Ted. Let's play it, and we'll come back and talk about it.
Couldn't get any worse at the moment. Both Ford and GM has approached President Trump about proposing a right to repair legislation, which would prevent pretty much any owner from working on their own cars. Now, this sounds ridiculous, but it could not be farther from the truth. GM and Ford doesn't want their customers touching their cars. They want them going to dealerships to pay those outrageous prices because they claim that cars have gotten far too digital and computerized, and that even considering touching any of the software could completely ruin the cars. Yes, I understand that they've gotten completely digitalized, but it doesn't mean you can't stop an owner of a vehicle from working on his car. That's absurd. And that's exactly what President Trump said in a quote in addressing this. He said, "They don't want people to fix their car." I said, "That's strange, and I've never heard of such a thing." Directly from the horse's mouth. I don't see this going all the way through and passing into law. But the idea that Ford and GM don't...
I mean, Ted, what is more Americana than being able to tinker with or fix your own vehicle, let alone be able to take it to your local mechanic? This is insane to me.
It really is, John. But it's like, and I'm glad you brought that up. The association of the DSA, the communists, the Bernie Sanders tying into big business, because they're the ones putting this pressure on there. I'll give you a great example, and the bill that you're talking about is the Right to Repair Act. that Neil Dunn put in. Neil Dunn is retiring, and somebody else has picked it up. This is what happens. I took my previous expedition. It needed a water pump and a couple other things, and the quote was approximately $3,400 from the local dealer. And I'm like, that seems mighty high. And they told me how much they were charging an hour and what the price of the parts were. Well, I called a friend of mine. I called Archer Automotive, and I needed to get it fixed immediately, so I had to have somebody closer. And he recommended another independent shop. I got that truck out in, I think it was a day and a half, and it was $1,800. $1,800 compared to what the dealer was. And I got a friend of mine from Holland, and this is where Trump was saying in his video that it was somebody got fined for doing their own work. My friend in Holland, he called me up and he said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm changing the oil in my Excursion back when I was practicing veterinary medicine." He goes, "You can actually do that?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "You don't do that?" He goes, "No, in Holland it's illegal." I said, "You got to be kidding me." He goes, "No, you've got to have a certified mechanic and a dealership to do that." And I'm like, man, I hope that never happens here in America, but it's coming. You get these corporations tied in there, and go back to, I always talk about Trump didn't get rid of DEI and wokeism and all that. It's just put on pause. You go back to Jamie Dimon and all the wokeism and DEI, that hasn't gone away. That's just on hold. And when they get back in, it's going to come in, and they are going to start telling you what to do. Go to try to put a water heater in. You can do it now, but it'll get to a point where the Home Depots or the big box stores, you can order it, but they'll say, well, you need to have your permit number and the electrician. That's where we're heading. And people need to wake up. If you want the freedom and liberty we have in America, denounce the socialists and tell them who they really are to their face. They're communists. We don't want them. They don't belong in America. If you believe in liberties and freedoms, they don't belong here.
Absolutely. Well, what's interesting to me with technology is right in the middle of all this, Ted, because on the one hand, you can take this right here and you can look up on, YouTube or some places, ways to do all kind of things, including your own auto repair. But the people doing this all the time, walking around, the younger people are saying they don't even want to get a driver's license or whatever. And so they're going to let this go by, something that we fundamentally, you and I grew up to wouldn't even have thought of this to just happen without even, a chirp out of them, because they're just like, I don't know how to do it anyway. Who cares? I don't even care about a car. I'll just get on the bus or whatever. So it is fundamentally changing America, just like Obama basically said, who did his library yesterday. That's we may talk about that another time, but it is fundamentally.
I might have to miss that show. No, it's funny. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I'm glad you brought that up, because I made some notes here about Janice Lewis Brown, her platform, universal affordable child care. So I haven't read it. Is it one child? Is it 5 child? Is there a limit on how many children you can bring in? Strengthening tenants' rights. This ties right into that lady in New York who Madami put on his housing committee in New York, Hannah Shevitz, that says we want to get rid of property ownership because they should not own it, and they want to turn it over to NGOs that they can control. The lady in D.C., Janice Lewis Brown, halting gas and electric rate hikes, halting their rate hikes, which I think we can all agree. But the reality of it is, if a company can't raise their rates to maintain their infrastructure, like our good friends at Seminole Electric and some of the other ones around here, Clay Electric, if they can't raise their rates, well, guess what? They can't stay in business. Then you start getting brownouts and blackouts like they do in California. Brown in D.C., buses free. Now, this is racist, or this is class warfare. Buses free for D.C. SNAP recipients. So if I'm not getting SNAP recipient or benefits, I can't ride the bus free. So why am I working? And it's giving away other people's money to get votes, and we always know they run out of other people's money.
Absolutely. Well, it's so insidious how the way it's happening that they just want to control everything we do, and they want equal outcomes. They want us to basically just be like one of those sci-fi movies where we're just kind of walking around like that. Man, when I think about all the freedom that I have, then a lot of responsibility and a lot of hard work goes into what I'm doing. But I'm getting ready to go fishing. I'm going to be on the Gulf of America. All of that. I am so thankful for the blessings that I've received, for the parenting that I had, for the foundation that was given me, for America itself. God bless America and all of that. I can't imagine not being able to live like that. And America is one of the only places where you can.
It really is. It's a bastion of freedom. We can't lose that. I know we were going to talk about the right to repair bill. And if it's okay with you, can I run through a few things here? Because I think this is really important.
Absolutely. Go close out the show with it. Go for it.
All right. So the right to repair bill is something that has been put in by the independent automobile shops, people like Archer Automotive. And if they can't have access to the information from the dealership on new cars, they cannot fix the car. And the dealership wants everything directed to them. So what you're doing is you're getting rid of that pool of independent people. And we've seen this with the Home Depots and the Lowe's, the big box stores that drove out the small hardware stores that we had in all these communities, in the rural communities especially. And the right to repair employs tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people around the country in independent shops. I know personally these mechanics can make $140,000, $150,000, $160,000 a year, and people like Archer Automotive, they're open 5 days a week from 7:30 to 5:30. I think that's a heck of a living, and then you get people like the Bernie Sanders and the AOC is. They don't have a living wage. Well, if they work, they have a great living wage beyond that. The right to repair allows people, these independent repair shops, to be able to have access to that information on new models, and then they can fix it. Now, in warranty stuff, that may be a little bit different on the new stuff or the computerized stuff. You may have to go to the dealer on some of that stuff and the recall stuff on some of that stuff. But to go ahead and box out people, like you said, we grew up fixing our cars, and the people that aren't mechanically inclined, you're going to be boxed in to go into the dealership. Like I found out it was going to cost over $3,400 to fix it versus an independent who did a great job for $1,800. And it's just something we don't want to do that. And President Trump, he was right about it, but his messaging was wrong. And I hope you guys call your local representative. Neil Dunn had this. The local representatives in this area, they need to get on board with this and support this, because these are your neighbors, your friends, the people that sponsor your local baseball teams, the sport teams, your Rotary clubs, the FFA and all those things, the county fairs. These are the people that are doing it. Your big dealerships aren't going to do that so much in the way that the small independents that are actually living in your communities. And so call your representatives and tell them you want them to sponsor the right to equitable and professional auto industry repair, called the Repair Act. And if you have any questions, call John or I, or send us a message, or call Archer Automotive. It would be better because they can give you the lowdown on this. And they're open Monday through Friday, 7:30 to 5:30. Phone number is 352-495-2458. Located 15901 Southwest Archer Road. Your full service vehicle, gas and diesel, car and trucks, from radiator to the taillights and most everything in between. John, back to you.
You did a great job, Captain, as always. Peace out, everybody.
Have